Dr. Elena Vasquez walked into the control room at CERN with her usual cup of coffee. It was 3 in the morning, and the large underground facility in Switzerland was quiet. Most scientists had gone home hours ago. Elena liked working the night shift. She could think better when everything was silent. She sat down at her computer and looked at the data from the particle accelerator. Something was wrong. The numbers did not make sense. For the past week, strange signals had been showing up in their readings. At first, Elena thought it was just equipment problems. Old machines sometimes acted up, but the signals were getting stronger. Elena put on her headphones and listened to the audio version of the data. It sounded like static at first, but then she heard something else. A pattern. The static would repeat the same sounds over and over. It was like someone was trying to send a message. She called her colleague, Dr. James Morrison, who lived nearby. James was good with computer codes and signals. Elena needed his help to figure out what was happening. "James, you need to come in right now," she said into her phone. "Something very strange is happening with our equipment." "Elena, it's 3 in the morning. Can't this wait until tomorrow?" "No, it cannot wait. Trust me on this. Bring your laptop." 20 minutes later, James arrived at the facility. He found Elena staring at her computer screen with wide eyes. She had been working on the signal for hours. "Look at this," Elena said, pointing to her screen. "These signals are not coming from our machines. They are coming from space." James sat down next to her and looked at the data. He ran the signals through different computer programs to see if he could find a pattern. After an hour of work, he found something shocking. "Elena, this is not random static," James said. "This is binary code. Someone is sending us a message using ones and zeros." Elena felt her heart beating faster.
"Can you decode it?"
"I'm trying," James said, typing quickly on his laptop. "The pattern is very complex. Whoever sent this is very smart." As the sun came up, more scientists arrived at work. Elena and James had been working all night. They were tired but excited. The message was almost decoded. Dr. Sarah Chen, the head of the physics department, walked into the control room. She saw Elena and James hunched over their computers, surrounded by empty coffee cups and papers covered in numbers. "What are you two doing here so early?" Dr. Chen asked. Elena looked up with tired eyes. "We have been here all night. We found something incredible. Someone is sending us messages from space," Dr. Chen laughed. "Elena, you need sleep." "Space messages? Really?" "I'm serious," Elena said. James decoded part of it. "Show her." "James." James turned his laptop screen toward Dr. Chen. The first part of the message says, "Attention inhabitants of the third planet. The rest is still being decoded." Dr. Chen stopped laughing. She looked at the data more carefully. As a scientist, she knew that Elena and James were very good at their jobs. They would not make this up. "Keep working on it," Dr. Chen said. "I'm going to call some people." For the next 6 hours, Elena and James worked to decode the complete message. Other scientists joined them. The computer room filled with people from different departments. Everyone wanted to see what the message said. Finally, at 2 in the afternoon, the complete message appeared on the screen. The room became very quiet as Elena read it out loud. "Attention inhabitants of the third planet from your star. We have been observing your species for 847 of your years. Your technological development has reached the required level for contact. You now face a choice that will determine your future. Submit to integration with our collective consciousness or face elimination from this galaxy. You have 1 solar rotation to decide. We will monitor your communications for your answer. Choose wisely." Nobody spoke for a long time. Elena read the message again to make sure she had not made a mistake. The words were clear. Aliens had been watching Earth for hundreds of years. Now they wanted humans to make a choice. Join them or die. Dr. Chen was the first to speak. "We need to contact the government immediately. This is bigger than just science now." Elena saved all the data to multiple computers. She made copies of everything. This was the most important discovery in human history. She wanted to make sure the information was safe. James found more signals coming in. The aliens were still sending messages. Some of the new messages contained mathematical formulas and star charts. It was clear that these beings were much more advanced than humans. Within an hour, government officials arrived at CERN. Military officers in dark suits asked Elena and James hundreds of questions. They took copies of all the data and told everyone to keep quiet about what they had found. "This information cannot leave this room," said General Marcus Chen, who was leading the government team. "We need time to figure out what to do." Elena was frustrated. "General, the whole world needs to know about this. People have a right to know that aliens exist. Dr. Vasquez, if we tell people about this too quickly, there will be panic in the streets. We need to handle this carefully." "But the message says we only have 24 hours to decide," James said. "How can world leaders make this choice if they don't have all the information?" General Chen looked worried. "That's exactly what we're trying to figure out." Throughout the day, more signals arrived from space. Elena and James worked with government codebreakers to decode them. The new messages contained detailed information about the alien civilization. They called themselves the Collective. They were made up of thousands of different species from across the galaxy. All of these species had faced the same choice that humans now faced. The aliens explained that they did not want to hurt humans. They said that joining their collective would bring peace, knowledge, and an end to suffering. But species that refused to join were considered too dangerous to exist alongside other galactic civilizations. Elena wondered how many other planets had received this same message. How many had chosen to submit? How many had chosen to fight and been destroyed? As evening came, Elena realized that tomorrow would be different from any other day in human history. Either humanity would surrender its independence, or it would face a war against beings far more powerful than anything on Earth. She looked at the alien message one more time. The words seemed to glow on her computer screen. In less than 18 hours, the human race would have to make the most important decision in its history. Elena closed her eyes and wondered if humanity would choose freedom or survival. She had a feeling that they could not have both. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked into the control room at exactly 7 in the morning. She did this every day for the past 3 years. The room was filled with large screens showing pictures from space. One screen showed the moon. Another showed Mars. A third showed the space station that orbited Earth. Elena was 42 years old. She had black hair that she always kept in a neat bun. Her brown eyes were sharp and focused. She wore a white lab coat over simple blue clothes. People respected her because she was very smart and worked very hard. Elena worked for something called the Global Space Consortium. This was a big organization that wanted to build homes for people in space. Elena was the head of the colonial division. This meant she was in charge of planning where people would live when they left Earth. For 15 years, Elena had been designing these space homes. She had drawn plans for cities that would float in space around Earth. She had designed buildings that would be built on the moon. She had even planned towns that would be built on asteroids, the big rocks that float in space. The people who ran the Global Space Consortium had given Elena lots of money for her work. They had given her trillions of dollars. That is more money than most countries have. They wanted her to make sure that humans could live safely in space. Elena believed this work was the most important thing she had ever done. She thought she was helping to save the human race. Earth was getting crowded. The air was getting dirty. The water was getting harder to find. Space seemed like the answer to all these problems. On this particular morning, Elena stood in front of her favorite screen. It showed a 3D picture of the first permanent home that humans would build on the moon. The picture looked real even though it was made by a computer. Elena could see every detail of the buildings she had designed. The lunar colony would have 50 buildings. Each building would house 100 people. That meant 5,000 people could live there at first. Elena had planned for the colony to grow bigger over time. Eventually, 100,000 people could live there. The buildings looked like large domes. They were round and smooth. This shape would protect the people inside from the dangerous radiation that comes from space. The domes were connected by covered walkways. People could walk from one building to another without going outside. Elena had spent months figuring out how people would get water on the moon. There was no rain there. There were no rivers or lakes. But Elena had discovered that there was ice hidden under the ground in some places. Her buildings would have machines that could melt this ice and turn it into clean water for drinking. Food was another big problem. You cannot grow corn or wheat on the moon like you can on Earth. Elena had designed special rooms where people could grow vegetables under artificial lights. These rooms would be like farms, but they would be inside buildings. The most difficult part was figuring out how people would breathe. Earth has air everywhere, but space does not. Elena had designed machines that would take carbon dioxide, the gas that people breathe out, and turn it back into oxygen, the gas that people need to breathe in. These machines would work like the trees and plants on Earth. Elena had also planned how people would get from Earth to the moon. She had designed special ships that could carry 100 people at a time. These ships would make the trip from Earth to the moon in 3 days. Elena wanted to make sure that families could visit each other even if some lived on Earth and others lived in space. The lunar colony was just the beginning of Elena's bigger plan. She had also designed colonies for Mars. Mars was much farther away than the moon. It would take 6 months to travel there, but Mars was more like Earth in some ways. It had seasons. It had ice at the North and South poles. Elena thought that eventually millions of people could live on Mars. Elena had even bigger dreams. She wanted humans to live on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. These places were very far away and very cold. But Elena believed that with the right technology, people could live anywhere in space. As Elena looked at her designs that morning, she felt proud. She had spent her whole adult life working on this project. She had missed family dinners and birthday parties. She had worked on weekends and holidays, but she believed it was worth it. Elena's assistant Mark walked into the control room. Mark was 25 years old and had been working with Elena for 2 years. He was very good with computers and helped Elena turn her ideas into detailed plans. "Good morning, Dr. Vasquez," Mark said. The construction crew on the moon sent their daily report. They finished building the foundation for building number 1 yesterday. Elena smiled. Building number 1 would be the first permanent structure that humans built on the moon. It would house the workers who would build the rest of the colony. Elena had designed it to be extra strong and extra safe. "How long until they can start working on the walls?" Elena asked. "About 2 weeks," Mark replied. "They need to wait for the next supply ship to arrive. It will bring the special materials you ordered." Elena had spent years figuring out what materials would work best on the moon. Regular concrete would not work, because there was no water to mix it with. Regular steel would become too hot during the day and too cold at night. Elena had invented new materials that could handle the extreme conditions of space. "Dr. Vasquez," Mark said, "there is something else. The board of directors wants to meet with you this afternoon. They want to talk about expanding the project." The board of directors was the group of people who controlled the Global Space Consortium. They were very rich and very powerful. Some people called them the Empire because they had so much control over the space program. Elena was excited about the meeting. If the board wanted to expand the project, that meant they might give her even more money. With more money, she could build colonies faster. She could help more people leave Earth and start new lives in space. Elena spent the rest of the morning checking her designs one more time. She wanted to make sure everything was perfect before she talked to the board of directors. She looked at the plans for the air recycling systems. She checked the designs for the food growing rooms. She reviewed the blueprints for the water processing plants. Everything looked good. Elena felt confident that her designs would work. She had tested them using computer simulations. She had built small models and tested them in laboratories on Earth. She was ready to build humanity's first real home among the stars. As noon approached, Elena took off her lab coat and put on her best suit. She wanted to look professional for the board meeting. She had no idea that this meeting would change everything. She did not know that the board of directors had secrets they had not told her. She did not suspect that her beautiful designs were part of a much darker plan. Elena walked out of the control room feeling hopeful about the future. She believed she was building something wonderful that would help all of humanity. She had no way of knowing that she was about to discover the truth about the Empire's real intentions. 3 weeks after the board meeting, Elena received an urgent message from the moon. The construction crew had found something strange while digging the foundation for building number 5. The crew chief, a man named Robert Kim, was asking Elena to come to the moon immediately. Elena had never been to the moon before. She had designed everything from her office on Earth. The idea of actually going to space excited her and made her nervous at the same time. She had to take special classes to learn how to live in low gravity. She had to wear a special suit that would protect her from radiation. The trip to the moon took 3 days, just like Elena had planned. She traveled on one of the new transport ships that her team had designed. The ship was comfortable, but Elena could not sleep much. She kept wondering what the construction crew had found. When Elena arrived at the lunar construction site, she was amazed by what she saw. The colony was much bigger than it looked in the computer pictures. Building number 1 was almost finished. It looked exactly like her designs, but seeing it in real life made Elena feel proud and excited. Robert Kim met Elena at the landing pad. Robert was 50 years old and had been building things in space for 10 years. He was a big man with gray hair and strong hands. Elena had worked with him through video calls, but this was the first time they met in person. "Dr. Vasquez," Robert said through his helmet radio, "I am glad you came so quickly. What we found is very strange. I think you need to see it yourself." Robert led Elena across the construction site. Walking on the moon felt very different from walking on Earth. Each step made Elena bounce higher than normal because the moon's gravity was much weaker. Elena had to be careful not to trip or fall. They walked to where building number 5 was being built. This building was supposed to be the colony's main laboratory. Elena had designed it with special rooms for scientific experiments. She had planned for scientists to study moon rocks and test new technologies there. Near the construction site, Elena saw a large hole in the ground. The hole was about 10 feet deep and 20 feet wide. Several workers stood around the hole looking down into it. They all seemed excited and confused. "We were digging the foundation yesterday morning," Robert explained. "The ground seemed normal at first, but then we hit something hard. At first we thought it was just a big rock. But when we cleared away the dirt, we found this." Robert led Elena to the edge of the hole. Elena looked down and gasped. At the bottom of the hole was a smooth metal surface. The metal was silver and black, and it seemed to shine even in the dim light. The metal was clearly not natural. Someone had made it. "This is not possible," Elena said. "No one has ever built anything on the moon before us." Robert nodded. "That is what we thought too. But look at this." He pointed to marks carved into the metal surface. The marks looked like symbols or letters, but they were not from any language Elena recognized. Elena climbed down into the hole to get a closer look. The metal surface was perfectly smooth except for the carved symbols. Elena touched the surface with her gloved hand. The metal felt cold even through her thick gloves. "How big is this thing?" Elena asked. "We do not know yet," Robert replied. "We have only uncovered this small part. But our ground radar shows that it continues underground for at least 50 feet in every direction." Elena felt her heart beating faster. If this metal structure was 50 feet wide, it was not just a small object that had fallen from space. It was a building or a machine that someone had built on purpose. "Robert," Elena said, "we need to dig more. We need to see what this is." Robert looked worried. "Dr. Vasquez, I am not sure that is a good idea. We should probably tell the board of directors about this first. This is a very big discovery." Elena thought about this. Robert was probably right. The board of directors should know about this discovery. But Elena was too curious to wait. She wanted to understand what they had found before she told anyone else. "Let us dig a little more," Elena said. "Just enough to understand what this is. Then we will contact Earth." Robert did not look happy, but he agreed. He called his workers over and told them to carefully dig around the metal structure. The workers used small tools so they would not damage whatever they had found. As the workers dug, more of the metal structure became visible. Elena could see that it was not just a flat surface. It was the top of something much larger. The structure had curved edges and smooth corners. It looked like it might be the roof of a building. After 4 hours of careful digging, the workers had uncovered an area about 30 feet wide. Elena could now see that the structure definitely was a building. There were what looked like windows or openings along the sides. There was even what might have been a door. Elena was amazed and confused. The building looked very advanced. The metal was stronger and smoother than anything humans could make. The design was elegant and beautiful. But who had built it and when? As the sun began to set on the moon, Elena made a decision. "Robert," she said, "tomorrow we are going to try to open that door." Robert looked very worried now. "Dr. Vasquez, I really think we should contact Earth first. This could be dangerous." Elena understood Robert's concern, but she also knew that if they contacted Earth, the board of directors might tell them to stop digging. The board might want to keep this discovery secret. Elena wanted to know the truth. "Just one day," Elena said. "Let us see what is inside. Then we will tell Earth everything." The next morning, Elena and Robert worked together to clear the dirt away from what looked like a door. The door was made of the same smooth metal as the rest of the building. There was no handle or lock that Elena could see. Elena ran her hands along the door, looking for a way to open it. Suddenly, her hand touched a small symbol near the bottom of the door. The symbol began to glow with a soft blue light. Then, without any sound, the door began to slide open. Elena and Robert looked at each other through their helmet visors. Neither of them said anything for a moment. Then Elena took a deep breath and stepped forward. Inside the building, Elena found something that changed everything she believed about space and humanity. The building was not empty. It was filled with machines and computers that looked far more advanced than anything on Earth. The walls were covered with pictures and symbols that seemed to tell a story. Elena studied the pictures carefully. They showed the moon as it was now, empty and gray. But they also showed the moon as it had been before, covered with buildings and machines and what looked like living creatures. The pictures seemed to be telling the story of a civilization that had lived on the moon long ago. The most disturbing pictures were at the end of the sequence. They showed the moon civilization in decline. They showed buildings being abandoned. They showed the creatures leaving the moon and traveling through space. The last picture showed the moon empty and dead, just like it was now. Elena realized that she was looking at the remains of a civilization that had tried to colonize space, just like humans were trying to do now. But something had gone wrong. Something had caused this civilization to fail and disappear. As Elena studied the alien pictures, she began to understand a terrible possibility. Maybe humans were not the first species to try to colonize space. Maybe other civilizations had tried before and failed. Maybe there was something about space colonization that was more dangerous than anyone realized. Elena took pictures of everything she found with her helmet camera. She knew she had to document everything before she told anyone else about this discovery. She had a feeling that once the board of directors learned about this, they might try to hide it or destroy it. After 6 hours inside the alien building, Elena and Robert finally left. They sealed the door and covered the entrance with dirt again. Elena made Robert promise not to tell anyone about what they had found until she decided what to do. That night, Elena could not sleep. She kept thinking about the pictures she had seen. She kept wondering what had happened to the alien civilization, and she kept worrying that humans might be making the same mistakes. Elena returned to Earth with a heavy heart and a head full of questions. She had hundreds of photos stored in her helmet camera. She had detailed notes about the alien building. She had measurements and drawings of the symbols she had found. But she was not sure who she could trust with this information. Elena decided to tell the board of directors about her discovery. She believed they would be as excited as she was about finding proof that other intelligent life had existed. She thought they would want to study the alien technology to learn from it. She was wrong. Elena scheduled a meeting with the board for the day after she returned to Earth. The meeting was held in the highest floor of the Global Space Consortium building in New York City. The room had large windows that looked out over the city. Elena had been in this room many times before, but today it felt different. Today it felt cold and unwelcoming. The board of directors consisted of 12 people. They were some of the richest and most powerful people on Earth. They controlled governments, banks, and corporations. Elena had always respected them because they had given her the money to pursue her dreams of space colonization. The chairman of the board was a man named Victor Sterling. He was 70 years old and had gray hair and sharp blue eyes. He had made his fortune in technology and aerospace companies. Elena had worked with him for many years and had always found him to be supportive of her work. "Dr. Vasquez," Victor said as Elena entered the room. "Welcome back from the moon. We heard that there was some kind of delay in the construction schedule." Elena sat down at the large oval table. She placed her tablet computer in front of her. The tablet contained all the photos and data she had collected from the alien building. "There was more than a delay," Elena said. "We made a discovery that changes everything we know about space exploration." Elena began to tell the board about finding the alien building. She showed them the photos of the metal structure. She explained about the symbols and the pictures inside. She described the story that the alien pictures seemed to tell. As Elena spoke, she noticed that the board members were not reacting the way she had expected. They were not excited or amazed. Instead, they looked worried and uncomfortable. Some of them were exchanging glances with each other as if they were having a silent conversation. When Elena finished her presentation, the room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Victor Sterling spoke. "Dr. Vasquez," he said, "this is a very serious matter. We appreciate you bringing this to our attention immediately." "I thought you would want to send a team of scientists to study the site," Elena said. "This could be the greatest discovery in human history." Victor smiled, but his smile did not look friendly. We will definitely be sending a team to investigate. But first we need to discuss security concerns. Security concerns? Elena asked. Another board member, a woman named Margaret Chen, leaned forward. Dr. Vasquez, information like this could cause panic if it became public. People might become afraid of space exploration. They might think that space colonization is dangerous. Elena was confused. But this discovery proves that intelligent life exists beyond Earth. It shows that space colonization is possible. Other beings did it before us. Yes, Victor said, but it also shows that they failed. Their civilization disappeared. People might see this as a warning rather than an encouragement. Elena began to understand that the board was not planning to share this discovery with the world. Are you saying you want to keep this secret? For now, Victor replied, until we can study it more thoroughly and understand what it means. Elena felt uncomfortable, but she agreed to keep the discovery quiet for a few weeks while the board organized a research team. She gave them copies of all her photos and data. She promised not to tell anyone else about what she had found, but as the days passed, Elena began to worry. The board had promised to send a research team to the moon within a week. But a week went by, then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks. Elena heard nothing about the alien building. Elena tried to contact Robert Kim and the other workers who had been at the construction site. But she discovered that Robert had been transferred to a project on Mars. The other workers had been given assignments on different parts of the moon, far away from the alien building site. When Elena asked Mark, her assistant, to pull up the satellite images of the construction site, she made a disturbing discovery. The area where they had found the alien building had been filled in with concrete. Building number 5 was being constructed on top of the site, exactly as if nothing had ever been found there. Elena called Victor Sterling immediately. Victor, she said, what happened to the alien building? Why did you cover it up? Victor's voice was calm and cold. Dr. Vasquez, we decided that the site was not safe for research. We had our experts examine your photos, and they determined that the structure might be dangerous. It could contain harmful radiation or biological hazards. Elena knew this was not true. She had been inside the building for hours and had detected no radiation or biological threats. Victor, you are lying to me. Why are you covering this up? Dr. Vasquez, Victor said, I think you are overreacting. We are simply being cautious. The space program is too important to risk on something we do not understand. Elena hung up the phone, but she could not let the matter drop. She began to investigate on her own. She used her security clearance to access satellite images from other parts of the moon. She looked for any other signs of alien structures or unusual formations. What Elena found made her blood run cold. There were at least 6 other sites on the moon where the ground had been disturbed and then covered with concrete. The board of directors had been finding alien structures for years and covering them up every time. Elena also discovered that similar cover-ups had happened on Mars. Construction, crews had found strange metal objects buried in the Martian soil. These discoveries had been classified and hidden from the public. The crews who made the discoveries had been transferred to other projects or had quit their jobs under mysterious circumstances. Elena realized that she was not the first person to discover evidence of ancient alien civilizations. The board of directors had been hiding these discoveries for years. But why? What were they afraid of? Elena decided to contact some of the workers who had made these discoveries. She found the contact information for a former Mars construction worker named James Rodriguez. James had been transferred back to Earth 6 months earlier after his crew found strange artifacts buried near their construction site. Elena met James at a small cafe in downtown Denver. James was a quiet man in his 40s who looked nervous and tired. When Elena told him about her discovery on the moon, James was not surprised. I wondered when someone else would find something, James said. My crew found a whole complex of buildings on Mars. They were buried under the sand, but our deep foundation work uncovered them. What happened after you reported it? Elena asked. James looked around the cafe nervously before answering. At first, they told us to stop digging and wait for instructions. Then they brought in a special team to investigate. But instead of studying the buildings, they destroyed them with explosives. They said the buildings were unstable and dangerous. Did anyone else from your crew talk about what you found? James's face became very serious. 3 of my crew members tried to take photos and share them online. Two of them lost their jobs immediately. The third one, a guy named Tony Martinez, disappeared completely. His family says he left town without telling anyone where he was going. That was 4 months ago. No one has heard from him since. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. James, are you saying that the board of directors might hurt people who try to expose these discoveries? I am saying that bad things happen to people who ask too many questions about alien artifacts, James replied. Dr. Vasquez, if I were you, I would be very careful who you talk to about this. Elena left the cafe feeling frightened and confused. She had always believed that the Global Space Consortium was dedicated to advancing human knowledge and helping humanity expand into space. But now she was beginning to suspect that the organization had a much darker agenda. Elena spent the next week researching the backgrounds of the board of directors. She discovered that many of them had connections to military contractors and intelligence agencies. They had access to classified government information and advanced technologies that were not available to the public. Elena also discovered financial records that showed the space program was receiving funding from sources that were kept secret from the public. The money was not just coming from governments and public investors. It was also coming from private military companies and organizations that Elena had never heard of. The more Elena learned, the more she realized that the space colonization program was not what it appeared to be. The board of directors was not just hiding alien artifacts. They were hiding something much bigger and much more dangerous. Elena decided that she needed to find out the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be. She began to make copies of all her research and photos. She stored the copies in different locations so they would be safe if something happened to her. Elena also began to be more careful about her communications. She suspected that the board might be monitoring her phone calls and emails. Elena arrived at Central Park Zoo 15 minutes early. She walked around the zoo, pretending to look at the animals while actually watching for anyone who might be following her. She had spent the morning learning how to detect surveillance, using information she found on the internet. Elena never thought she would need these skills, but her life had become very different since she discovered the alien building. At exactly noon, a woman approached Elena near the penguin exhibit. The woman was about 35 years old with short brown hair and intelligent green eyes. She wore simple clothes, jeans, and a blue sweater that made her look like a regular tourist. Dr. Vasquez, the woman said quietly. I am Sarah Chen. Elena recognized the last name. Are you related to Margaret Chen from the board of directors? Sarah nodded sadly. She is my aunt. That is how I learned about what the board is really doing. I work as a data analyst for the Global Space Consortium. I have access to information that most employees never see. Sarah suggested they walk while they talked. She explained that staying in one place too long might make them easier to spot if anyone was watching them. Dr. Vasquez, Sarah said, what I am about to tell you will be very difficult to believe, but I have proof of everything. Sarah told Elena that the alien artifacts were not a recent discovery. The Global Space Consortium had been finding evidence of ancient alien civilizations for over 20 years. They had found artifacts on Earth, on the Moon, on Mars, and on several asteroids. The first discovery was made in Antarctica in 2005, Sarah explained. A research team drilling for ice samples found a buried structure similar to what you found on the Moon. The structure contained thousands of artifacts and what appeared to be a complete record of an alien civilization's history. Elena was amazed. Why was this never made public? Because the alien records told a terrifying story, Sarah replied. According to the artifacts, this alien civilization had tried to colonize space multiple times over thousands of years. Every time they expanded beyond their home planet, their civilization collapsed within a few generations. Sarah explained that the alien records showed a pattern. Civilizations would develop space travel and begin building colonies on other planets. At first, the colonies would be successful, but then something would go wrong. The colonies would fail, and the entire civilization would collapse back to a primitive state. The alien records suggest that there is something about space colonization that is fundamentally unstable, Sarah said, something that causes civilizations to destroy themselves. Elena felt a chill as she remembered the pictures she had seen in the alien building on the Moon. Those pictures had shown a similar story of decline and abandonment. But Sarah, Elena said, if space colonization is dangerous, why is the board continuing with the program? Why are they spending trillions of dollars on something that might fail? Sarah stopped walking and looked directly at Elena. Because they believe they can succeed where the aliens failed, and because they have a backup plan. Sarah explained that the board of directors had access to alien technology that was far more advanced than anything humans had developed. They had been secretly studying this technology for 20 years and had learned how to use some of it. The public space program, the one you have been designing, is just a cover story, Sarah said. The real space program is much more advanced and much smaller. The board is building secret colonies that can support only a few thousand people. These colonies use alien technology to solve the problems that caused previous civilizations to fail. Elena was confused. If they can solve the problems, why not use the technology to help everyone? Why keep it secret? Sarah's expression became very serious. Because they believe that overpopulation is what causes space colonization to fail. They think that too many people put too much stress on the systems, so they plan to limit the space colonies to a very small number of carefully selected people. Selected by whom? Elena asked, though she was beginning to suspect the answer. By the board of directors and their allies, Sarah replied. They plan to choose about 50,000 people who will be allowed to live in the secret space colonies. Everyone else will be left on Earth. Elena felt sick to her stomach. Left on Earth to do what? Sarah hesitated before answering. The board believes that Earth is doomed. Climate change, overpopulation, and resource depletion will make the planet uninhabitable within 50 years. They think the only way to save humanity is to establish permanent colonies in space. But they believe that only a small group can survive in space successfully. Elena realized the horrible truth. They are planning to abandon Earth. They are going to let billions of people die while they escape to space. Sarah nodded sadly. The public space program is designed to fail. The colonies you have been designing will not work because the board is not giving you the real technology you need. They want the public program to fail so that people will lose interest in space colonization.
Meanwhile, they will quietly build their secret colonies using the alien technology. Elena sat down on a park bench, feeling overwhelmed by what she was learning.
Sarah, how do you know all this? How did you find out about the real plan? Sarah sat down next to Elena. I work in the data analysis department. My job is to process information from all the space missions and construction projects. About 6 months ago, I started noticing discrepancies in the data. Resources were being shipped to space that were not accounted for in any public project. Money was being spent on research that did not exist in any official records. Sarah explained that she had begun investigating these discrepancies on her own time. She had used her security clearance to access classified databases. Slowly, she had pieced together the truth about the secret space program. The board has been preparing for this for decades, Sarah said. They have identified the people they want to save. Scientists, engineers, doctors, artists, and other skilled professionals. They have also selected wealthy individuals and political leaders who can help fund and protect the secret colonies. Elena asked the question she was afraid to hear the answer to. Am I on the list? Sarah looked sad as she answered. Yes, you are. The board wants you to help design the secret colonies using the alien technology. They think your skills are too valuable to leave behind. Elena felt disgusted. How can they choose who lives and who dies? What gives them the right? They believe they are saving humanity, Sarah replied. They think that if they try to save everyone, they will save no one. They have studied the alien records and believe that large populations are incompatible with successful space colonization. Elena stood up from the bench and began pacing. This is insane. We need to expose this plan. We need to tell people what the board is really doing. Sarah looked frightened. Dr. Vasquez, that would be very dangerous. The board has connections to intelligence agencies and military organizations. They have ways of making problems disappear. Elena thought about James Rodriguez's story about Tony Martinez, the construction worker who had disappeared after trying to share photos of alien artifacts. She realized that Sarah was probably right about the danger. But we cannot just let them get away with this, Elena said. There has to be something we can do. Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a small USB drive. I have been copying classified files for months. This drive contains proof of everything I have told you. Financial records, technical specifications for the secret colonies, lists of the people selected to survive, and complete files on all the alien artifacts that have been found. Elena took the USB drive. It felt heavy in her hand. Even though it weighed almost nothing, she realized she was holding evidence that could change the course of human history. What do you want me to do with this? Elena asked. I am not sure, Sarah admitted. I am just a data analyst. I do not have the knowledge or connections to know how to use this information effectively, but you are respected in the scientific community. You have access to government officials and media contacts. Maybe you can find a way to expose the truth without getting us both killed. Elena put the USB drive in her pocket. Sarah, why are you risking your life to tell me this? Why not just keep quiet and hope to be selected for the secret colonies? Sarah was quiet for a moment before answering. Because I have a daughter. She's 8 years old. According to the board's selection criteria, she probably will not be chosen. She is not a genius or an artist or the child of wealthy parents. She is just a normal, wonderful little girl who deserves a chance to live. Sarah's voice became emotional as she continued. I cannot live with myself knowing that I helped cover up information that could save her life and the lives of billions of other people. Even if exposing the truth means that no one survives, at least everyone will have a fair chance. Elena understood. She thought about all the people she knew who would not be selected for the secret colonies. Her elderly parents, her cousin who worked as a teacher, her friend who was a nurse. They were good people who deserved to know the truth about their future. Sarah, Elena said, I will find a way to use this information. I will expose what the board is doing. Sarah looked relieved but still worried. Be very careful, Dr. Vasquez. The board will do anything to protect their plan. They have been working on... Elena spent 3 sleepless nights studying the files on Sarah's USB drive. The information was overwhelming and terrifying. She found detailed plans for 12 secret space colonies, each designed to house between 3,000 and 5,000 people. She found lists of the 50,000 people selected to survive, organized by their skills and usefulness to the new space civilization. The most disturbing files were the psychological profiles. The board had been studying the selected survivors for years, monitoring their behavior, their loyalty, and their willingness to follow orders. The board wanted people who would not question authority or challenge the new social order they planned to establish in space. Elena also found financial records showing how the board had been secretly funding their plan. They had been taking money from the public space program and using it to build their private colonies. They had been selling alien technology to military contractors to raise additional funds. The public was unknowingly paying for their own abandonment. On the 4th morning after her meeting with Sarah, Elena received a phone call that changed everything. The caller was Victor Sterling, the chairman of the board. Dr. Vasquez, Victor said in his calm, cold voice. I think it is time for us to have an honest conversation. Can you come to my office this afternoon? Elena felt her heart rate increase. Did Victor know about her meeting with Sarah? Had they discovered that she had the classified files? Of course, Elena replied, trying to keep her voice steady. What time would be convenient? 2 o'clock, Victor said. And Dr. Vasquez, please come alone. Elena arrived at Victor's office at exactly 2 o'clock. The office was on the top floor of the Global Space Consortium building, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a spectacular view of New York City. Elena had been in this office many times before, but today, it felt like she was walking into a trap. Victor was sitting behind his large wooden desk, reading something on his tablet computer. He looked up when Elena entered and smiled, but his smile did not reach his eyes. Dr. Vasquez, Victor said, please sit down. We have a lot to discuss. Elena sat in the leather chair across from Victor's desk. She tried to appear calm, but she could feel sweat forming on her palms. Victor set down his tablet and looked directly at Elena. I know about your meeting with Sarah Chen. Elena's stomach dropped, but she tried not to show her fear. I am not sure what you mean, Victor laughed softly. Dr. Vasquez, we have been monitoring Sarah's activities for months. We know that she has been accessing classified files without authorization. We know that she contacted you and gave you information about our private projects. Elena realized there was no point in lying. If you know all this, why did you wait until now to confront me? Because we wanted to see what you would do with the information, Victor replied. We wanted to know if you could be trusted with the truth. Victor stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the city below as he spoke. Dr. Vasquez, everything that Sarah told you is true. We have been building secret space colonies using alien technology. We have selected 50,000 people to survive while the rest of humanity faces extinction on Earth. And yes, we have been covering up evidence of alien civilizations for 20 years. Elena was surprised by Victor's honesty. Why are you telling me this now? Victor turned back to face Elena. Because we want you to join us willingly. We could force you to cooperate, but we would prefer to have your genuine support. Join you in abandoning billions of people to die? Elena asked. Victor's expression became serious. Dr. Vasquez, I understand your moral objections, but you need to understand the reality of our situation. Earth is dying. Climate change, overpopulation, and resource depletion will make this planet uninhabitable within 50 years. We cannot save everyone. Victor returned to his desk and picked up his tablet. He showed Elena a series of graphs and charts. These are our most recent projections, Victor explained. Within 30 years, Earth's population will exceed 10 billion people. Food production will decline due to climate change. Fresh water will become increasingly scarce. Wars will break out over the remaining resources. Elena studied the charts. She had seen similar projections before and she knew they were probably accurate. Earth was facing serious problems. But that does not give you the right to choose who lives and who dies, Elena said. Victor set down the tablet and leaned forward. Dr. Vasquez, if we tried to save everyone, we would save no one. The alien records prove this. Every civilization that attempted mass space colonization failed within a few generations. The only way to ensure human survival is to carefully select a small group of the most capable individuals. Capable according to whom? Elena asked. According to you and your wealthy friends? Victor smiled again. According to scientific criteria, we have selected people based on their intelligence, their skills, their genetic health, and their psychological stability. We have not selected people based on their wealth or political connections. Elena knew this was only partially true. She had seen the lists of selected survivors, and while many were scientists and professionals, there were also many wealthy business people and politicians. What about families? Elena asked. What about children and elderly people who might not meet your criteria but who deserve to live? Victor's expression softened slightly. That is the most difficult part of our plan. We cannot support large numbers of non-productive individuals in the space colonies, but we have made provisions for some families and some older people who have made significant contributions to humanity. Elena realized that Victor was trying to appeal to her emotions while also justifying a plan that would result in the deaths of billions of people. Dr. Vasquez, Victor continued, you are on our list of selected survivors. Not only that, but you are on our list of essential personnel. We need your expertise to design the living systems for our colonies. Your work could help ensure the survival of human civilization. Elena felt sick. And what happens to my parents? What happens to my friends who are not on your list? Victor's expression became cold again. They will live out their lives on Earth. We are not planning to harm anyone directly. We are simply planning to ensure that some humans survive when Earth becomes uninhabitable. Elena stood up from her chair. You are planning to let billions of people die while you escape to safety. That is not survival, that is murder. Victor also stood up. Dr. Vasquez, I understand that this is difficult to accept, but sometimes difficult decisions must be made for the greater good. We are offering you a chance to be part of humanity's future. And if I refuse? Elena asked. Victor was quiet for a moment before answering. Then you will face the same fate as everyone else who is not selected. You will remain on Earth when we leave. Elena understood the threat. If she did not cooperate, she would be removed from the list of survivors. I need time to think about this, Elena said. Victor nodded. Of course. This is a big decision. But Dr. Vasquez, I must ask you to keep this conversation confidential. If information about our plan becomes public, it could cause panic and chaos. It could also interfere with our ability to complete the space colonies in time. How much time do I have? Elena asked. 48 hours, Victor replied. If you agree to join us, we will begin training you on the alien technology immediately. If you refuse, we will remove you from the project. Elena left Victor's office feeling numb and confused. She walked through the streets of New York for hours trying to process what she had learned. Victor had confirmed everything that Sarah had told her, but he had also presented it as humanity's only hope for survival. Elena found herself facing an impossible choice. She could join the board's plan and help save 50,000 people while abandoning everyone else. Or she could try to expose the plan and risk destroying humanity's only chance of survival. That evening, Elena called her parents. They lived in a small town in Ohio. where her father worked as a high school teacher and her mother was a librarian. They were good, honest people who had worked hard their whole lives to provide for their family. "How are you doing, honey?" her mother asked. "You sound stressed." Elena wanted to tell her parents the truth, but she knew it would only frighten them. "I am just working on a difficult project, Mom. How are you and Dad doing?" Her parents told her about their garden, their neighbors, and their plans for retirement. They sounded happy and content with their simple life. Elena realized that according to the board's selection criteria, her parents would not be chosen for the space colonies. They were not scientists or artists or wealthy individuals. They were just ordinary people who deserved to live. After hanging up the phone, Elena made her decision. She could not be part of a plan that would abandon her parents and billions of other innocent people. She would find a way to expose the board's secret agenda, even if it meant risking everything. Elena spent the rest of the evening making copies of Sarah's files and hiding them in different locations. She uploaded copies to secure servers in different countries. She gave copies to friends with instructions to release the information if anything happened to her. Elena also began researching journalists and government officials who might be willing to listen to her story. She needed to find people who were brave enough to challenge the global space consortium and